what is a suspicious activity report, and like, when is it made? When does it occur?
I knew a lot about these because I was a director of a bank for over a decade. A suspicious activity report is when the bank files notice with the Treasury Cabinet that they suspect their client has committed a crime. Doesn't mean they committed a crime. They have a strong suspicion that a crime was committed, so it's to protect the bank as well.
So how frequently do these things happen?
Very seldom, despite what the Washington Post, or in their defense of the Biden, they say, well, everybody has a suspicious activity report. That is baloney. I was on a bank board for 10 years. I think we issued 2 over the course of 10 years.
And how many were issued concerning Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and the Biden family?
Over 170. They were direct.
Wait, you were at a bank and they issued 2 in 10
how many years?
If you had 2 SARs, they're called SARs in the banking industry. If you had 2 SARs against you, it would be hard for you to open an account somewhere. There wouldn't be any bank that would want to have you as a customer because it's not worth the paperwork. Remember, when the bank files one of these, you can understand this, appreciate this, Senator. That's inviting the regulators to come in and regulate. Okay, that's the last thing the banks want.
170 get filed. That means that somebody's getting a deposit in their account. It's a big amount. It's from somewhere suspicious. I mean, what triggers it? Why? You're a banker. What is it that makes you say we got to file a SAR?
A large transaction that comes out of the blue. So
and what's large? So, what is there a threshold?
You had I'll use the Robinson Walker account because we subpoenaed. That was the first bank account we subpoenaed.
Now, who's Robinson Walker?
Rob Walker was one of the associates that they used to funnel money from China and Romania and then down and launder it down to the Biden.
So he's a guy that's doing business with Hunter and Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't know what that business is, but they got a $3 million wire from China. So
one wire, $3 million.
$3 million. Now remember, this account never had much activity in it over the course of 10 years, maintained around a $40,000 or $50,000 balance. Then one day, out of the blue, they get a $3 million wire from China.
And so their bank says this is weird.
Yes.
And it's coming from China. Like on the face of it, it's a wire.
It's coming from China.
Yeah, and he'd never gotten a foreign wire before. And there's $3 million in an account that's never had more than $50,000. Some months, it had $10,000 balance, but never more than $50,000. Then all of a sudden, a $3 million wire.
And then what happens to that $3 million when it lands?
24 hours later, because that's the minimum amount of time you can. You have to have a deposit in the bank for at least 24
the wire
hours.
needs to clear.
Yeah, it needs to clear.
Yeah.
24 hours and 2 minutes later.
It's just after 24 hours.
Just after 24 hours. The next day, they start wiring incremental payments to different Biden shell companies.
So how many Biden shell companies
And you know what that's called? When you set up a bunch of shell companies for the sole purpose to launder money, that's called racketeering.
Yeah. They take a third.
Somebody else got a third. Then the Bidens got 1.3 million of the 3 million.
And 1.3 to different Biden family members.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's just from one payment.
That particular transaction went to 4 different Biden family members.
So that was one suspicious activity report.
One.
And there's 100 and how many?
169 more. Plus, just because, those were suspicious activity reports that were created by Joe or Hunter Biden. Then they were the subject of another 100 suspicious activity reports.
So that's 270 if you're counting individually.
At least.
So if you're the Treasury Department, because Treasury is getting these SARs.
Yes. I don't know of anybody that's ever gotten more than 2 or 3. You're talking about the president's immediate family that got over 170, right? Normally, and here's what the suspicious activity report said. I've had access and I've read them all at Treasury. They said they suspected they were money laundering. They suspected they had...
and this is from multiple banks. It's not just
multiple banks. Banks you've heard of. J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank. These are Bank of America.
Big banks.
Big
These
banks.
are serious banks with real lawyers that know what they're doing.
And they knew who they were. They said this is a politically exposed person. They suspected some of these wires were coming from state-owned entities. They said that from some of the China...
Okay, so you're going to explain what that means.
The communist government is sending the money.
Yes. according to
And
J.P. Morgan.
And the whistleblower in that scenario is the bank who's saying that.
The whistleblower
So
is the
J.P.
bank.
Morgan is saying, we believe.
J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America.
So they write this suspicious
And
activity
by the way,
report.
like all of those banks, J.P. Morgan, their CEO, Jamie Dimon, is a prominent Democrat.
Right.
I mean, none of these banks are Republicans. None of these banks have it out for the Bidens.
We've lost Wall Street. They're all Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, that's not... So these are all banks that are reliable political donors to the Democrats that are nonetheless looking at reports saying, wow, this is really concerning.
But they're writing in the report. I'm in shock by this. You've seen a lot more of this stuff in the legal world than I have. I'm genuinely in shock right now. The fact that you're telling me that an American bank is writing that we believe a wire transfer coming into the Biden family is coming from the Chinese Communist government, not
And
an
that
entity.
it's money laundering.
It's money, and we're saying it's money laundering on top of it coming from the Chinese Communist government. Is that the moment when you said, "Holy crap"?
Yeah. Wire fraud, tax fraud, money laundering.
So they're naming all the things
Everything.
they think.
A shell company is a fake company. Okay? It's a company that...
So it's not a real business. It's
a real
not
business.
making
They
widgets.
don't make
It's not...
anything. They don't produce anything. They don't provide a good or service.
Okay.
They're just...
It's just a corporate entity that's created on paper.
We could go to the Texas or Kentucky Secretary of State and file a company in 2 minutes that says Cruz and Comer Energy Company. But that doesn't mean we have an energy company.
Right.
We just have an LLC, limited liability company, that says we're a energy company. So they just create these fake companies.
And how many are we talking about?
20.
20.
20.
So 20 different Biden fake companies. They don't have factories.
No.
They don't have machinery.
They don't own
have
real estate.
products. They don't own
have
real
a
estate.
website. They don't have a business card. They don't
So
have
there are 20
employees.
They don't have a
companies.
storefront. They have nothing.
Okay, they're just.
So that's where the laundering.
Yes.
So explain how you launder money and how that works.
Money laundering is hiding money. You're hiding the source of the money, and you're deceiving the Internal Revenue Service to try to evade taxes. So if the Hunter Biden was doing something legitimate for China, they could have just wired the money to Hunter Biden, but they didn't. They sent it to a company called Robinson Walker. Then they wired it to a company called Owasco. Then they wired it to another company called Bohe something or another. And then they start
And
monthly.
do these companies do anything with it?
Nothing.
Or they're just it's
to
just like a
deceive.
bucket to pour the
Yes,
water in,
yes.
then you pour it in another
That's
place
exactly
and pour
what
it somewhere
is.
else.
That's exactly what it is. And it was organized. This is like organized crime.